Welcome to our deep dive into the core concepts of managing for results by Peter Drucker.
The father of modern management thinking.
Exactly. And we're not looking at the full book here.
Right.
It's a special preface that he wrote in 1985,
Yeah.
a full 20 years after the original publication.
Interesting.
So we get this really cool benefit of hindsight
I like it.
to see how his ideas have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And Drucker was really all about businesses thriving, not just surviving.
Right.
He was fascinated by the economic tasks that companies have to master to really make it in the long run.
It's fascinating because he really challenges that common complaint that you hear all the time, that executives just don't spend enough time thinking about the future.
Right.
His argument is they're not avoiding it.
Yeah.
They're just completely overwhelmed by the day-to-day realities of just keeping the lights on.
Keeping the wheels turning.
And back in the 60s, he was already pointing out that most companies just didn't have the right tools and systems
Oh, interesting.
to truly understand their economic engine.
So it's not about working hard. It's about working on the right things.
I think that's a great way to put it.
And Drucker lays out 3 key business realities.
Yeah.
That seem pretty obvious to us now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But we're pretty revolutionary back then.
Absolutely. The first one is that businesses exist to produce results outside in the market and in the economy.
Oh,
So it's about the impact you're having on the world, not just about internal busy work.
got it.
The second thing he says is that results come from exploiting opportunities, not just solving problems.
Okay.
That's subtle, but it's a really important distinction.
So being proactive, not just reactive.
Exactly.
Looking for chances to grow and innovate
Yeah.
instead of just plugging holes.
Instead of just putting out fires.
Right.
Right? And that leads to the third reality, which is resources have to be allocated to opportunities, not to problems.
Okay.
So this is where it gets really practical. You have to put your money, your time, your best people where they're going to have the most impact. He's all about effectiveness over efficiency,
I love that.
doing the right things,
Yeah.
not just doing things right.
Yes, because it's so easy to get bogged down in that
Totally.
and just making things more efficient.
Yeah,
But if we're not even working on the right things in the first place,
exactly.
what's the point?
What does it matter? And he's pushing us to think bigger. You know, almost like we're all entrepreneurs within our own companies.
I love that.
He actually uses the phrase maximization of opportunities to define the entrepreneurial job.
Oh, wow.
It's not just about starting new ventures.
Right.
It's about this constant seeking and exploiting of those chances to create value, no matter where you are in an organization.
That's making me rethink my whole to-do list.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Drucker gives us these big ideas about focusing on the right things.
Right.
But how do we put this into practice?
Right.
How do we actually analyze a business and find those golden opportunities?
Well, that's where result areas come in.
Okay.
These are the measurable aspects of your business that are truly driving success.
Yeah.
And Drucker says we need to kind of break this down.
Yeah.
You've got the individual businesses within your company. You've got your product lines, your markets, your distribution channels.
Yeah.
Each one of these is a result area that deserves some scrutiny.
So it's like taking a magnifying glass to your business and examining each piece.
Under the microscope.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just look at that overall profit or loss number. You have to really zoom in on the components
Yeah.
that are contributing to that.
Right. And you need to see where the action really is.
So where does he suggest we start?
He suggests starting with products
Okay.
because most executives are pretty familiar with them.
They should be.
But here's the catch.
Okay.
We need to define the real product,
Well,
not just what we think we're selling.
okay, now I'm intrigued. I need an example.
Okay.
What's the difference between the perceived product and the real deal?
Okay, think about the classic Gillette safety razor
Okay.
back in Drucker's day.
Yeah.
They practically gave those razors away.
Really?
The real product, the thing that was driving the profit, was the replacement blades.
Oh.
So you have to look beyond the obvious and see what the customer is actually paying for. What need are they satisfying?
That is so simple, but so brilliant.
Right.
Because we often get so focused on the physical object that we're selling that we forget to think about the bigger picture.
Totally.
It's about the ongoing relationship with the customer, not just a one-time transaction.
Exactly.
I love that.
And Drucker uses another great example from an office equipment company.
Okay.
Back then, they were really focused on these fancy reproduction machines.
Okay, yeah.
But it turned out their customers were really buying the supplies.
The inks and the stencils and all that stuff.
Exactly, all that stuff. And competitors were winning that supply business with better quality and lower prices.
Oh, wow.
So even though they had a successful product,
Yeah.
they were missing the real profit opportunity.
Because they misidentified their true product.
Exactly. And that's a valuable lesson for any business.
Yeah, any business, it's not enough to have a great product.
Yeah.
You need to understand how it fits into the customer's world.
And he actually goes a step further
Okay.
and says it's not just about the customer buying the product, it's about how they actually use it.
Okay.
He tells the great story about this high-quality furniture maker
Okay.
who was really struggling.
Okay.
He was trying to sell through all these fancy furniture stores,
Okay.
but his target customer was more of your average Joe
Yeah.
who shopped at mass-market retailers.
Oh, so his beautiful furniture was getting lost.
Exactly.
In a sea of high-end pieces.
Yeah.
And he wasn't reaching the right people.
Trying to sell ice to Eskimos.
Right.
Exactly. So he had to completely redesign his products
Wow.
to be suitable for mass distribution, making them easier to package and transport and display in these big department stores.
Yeah.
That's when his business really took off.
So sometimes you have to adapt to the customer's buying habits, even if it means changing a perfectly good product. It's about meeting the customer where they are.
Totally.
Not trying to force them to change to fit your mold.
And Drucker really emphasizes that analyzing your markets and your distribution channels is often overlooked, but can be incredibly insightful.
Okay.
He talks about this company that kept adding more and more brands to their appliance line.
Too many choices.
Thinking more choice was always better.
Right.
But you know what happened?
He backfired.
It totally backfired. It created confusion. It drove up their costs. And ultimately, it hurt everybody.
Less is more sometimes.
Sometimes less is more.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
What's that?
Understanding your product.
Yeah.
Understanding your customer.
Yeah.
Understanding your market.
All connected.
It's about taking that step back and seeing the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Not just your little piece of it.
The whole picture.
But Drucker doesn't want us to stop at just analyzing individual products, does he?
No, he doesn't. He points out that analyzing entire businesses within a larger complex is crucial.
Okay.
Especially for decentralized companies.
Okay.
That's where you get those higher level insights that can really transform your strategy.
I see. So we've been laying the groundwork here.
We have.
We've talked about defining your real products,
Yeah.
understanding how customers use them, recognizing the potential pitfalls of too much choice.
Absolutely.
But this is just the beginning, right?
Just the tip of the iceberg.
But we still need to dive into the nitty-gritty
Oh, yeah, the fun part.
of revenue resources.
Yeah.
And how to truly evaluate a business's economic performance.
That's right. And that's where things get even more interesting.
Well, let's get to it then.
Let's do it.
I'm ready to uncover more of Drucker's wisdom.
I'm happy to share it.
So we've talked about needing to really understand your products and your customers and your market, but let's get down to the brass tacks here.
Yeah, the financial stuff.
How does Drucker suggest we actually analyze a business's economic performance?
Right. Are we talking spreadsheets and balance sheets?
I mean, those have their place, but Drucker argues you need to dig deeper into the economics of the business. He wants us to focus on what he calls revenue contribution and cost burden.
Okay, those sound like pretty key concepts.
Yeah, they are.
Can you break those down for me?
So
what exactly do they mean?
So revenue contribution is all about understanding how much money a product really brings in after you subtract the cost of the raw materials.
Okay.
So it helps you see the true value that each product is generating.
Okay.
Cost burden, on the other hand, is about understanding the share of your total business costs, excluding raw materials and fixed costs that a product is responsible for.
So it's not just about the sticker price or the profit margin on a single unit.
Right.
It's about looking at the bigger picture of how that product impacts the entire business.
That's exactly right. You could have a product with a high profit margin.
Right.
But if it requires a ton of resources to produce and market and distribute, it might not be as profitable as it seems. Right. It's like those hidden costs that we don't always think about.
Exactly.
But Drucker also makes this really interesting point about how costs actually work in modern businesses.
Yeah.
He says they're largely related to transactions, not just the number of units you produce.
Yeah, that's a really interesting insight.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. Think about a supermarket chain.
Okay.
They might sell a case of cereal.
Yeah.
And a case of soup for the same price.
Right.
Same profit margin.
Okay.
But the soup might actually be more profitable.
Okay.
Because it requires fewer transactions.
Okay.
It takes up less shelf space.
Right.
It's easier to stock and replenish.
Yeah.
And customers buy it in smaller quantities.
So there are fewer individual transactions at checkout.
Exactly.
So a product can look profitable on paper.
Right.
But when you consider the whole chain of activities involved,
Yeah.
the picture can change dramatically.
You got it. It's a reminder that every touch point, every interaction has a cost associated with it.
That's so true. And speaking of costs,
Yeah.
Drucker also warns us about the deceptive nature of fixed costs.
Oh, yeah. Those can be sneaky.
Yeah, these are the expenses that don't change based on your production volume.
Right.
So they can make a business look more profitable than it actually is.
Especially when things slow down.
Can you give me an example of how fixed costs can be deceptive?
Yeah. Imagine a shipping company.
Okay.
They have these huge fixed costs.
Yeah, ship maintenance crew salaries.
All of that.
All that.
Whether their ships are full or not.
Right.
So even if they're only shipping half their capacity,
Yeah.
they're still carrying those massive fixed costs.
Eating into their profitability.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So we can't just focus on cutting costs across the board.
Right.
We need to understand the structure of those costs.
Yeah.
And find ways to optimize for maximum efficiency.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about revenue contribution and cost burden, and the importance of understanding fixed costs.
Yep.
What other economic factors does Drucker highlight?
Well, he talks a lot about achieving a leadership position in the market.
Okay.
You know, he argues that to be truly profitable and to survive over the long haul, you can't just be in the game.
Yeah.
You have to be a leader in some way.
So it's not enough to just have a product that meets a need.
Right.
You have to have something that truly stands out.
Yeah, something that customers are willing to pay a premium for.
You have to be the best.
Yeah, and Drucker points out that there are different paths to leadership.
Okay.
Some companies achieve it by serving a very specific niche,
Okay.
like Cummins Engine Company.
Okay.
They focused on heavy-duty truck engines,
Okay.
and they became like the go-to experts in that market.
The riches are in the niches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to be a big fish in a small pond.
I love that
Right.
than trying to compete in a crowded ocean.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's about depth over breadth,
Totally.
becoming that undisputed expert in a particular area.
And other companies achieve leadership by focusing on a very specific customer need. Like Drucker talks about these small manufacturers of specialized electric motors.
Okay.
They were outperforming the bigger companies by really focusing on a particular problem and becoming the best at solving it.
It's so interesting how he really pushes us to think differently about what it means to be successful in business.
Yeah.
It's not just about being big or having the most products.
Well-
It's about finding your unique edge, your distinct area of expertise,
Yeah.
and becoming a leader in that space.
Absolutely. And he says the ultimate test of leadership is whether your customers are willing to pay a premium for what you offer.
I like that.
It's not about your own claims of quality or innovation.
Right.
It's about what the customer perceives as valuable.
It's about what they're willing to put their money behind.
Exactly. That's the real measure of success.
So it's about creating something truly differentiated
Yes.
that solves a real problem for your customers in a way that no one else can.
I think that's a great way to put it.
This is giving me so many ideas. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Me too.
We've talked about analyzing your products, understanding your costs,
Yeah.
finding your leadership position.
Right.
But how do we connect all of this to the future?
Right.
How do we ensure that our business isn't just surviving today,
Yeah.
but thriving tomorrow?
That's where Drucker introduces this concept of tomorrow's breadwinners.
Okay.
These are the products of businesses
Yeah.
that have the potential for high growth and profitability,
Okay.
but they need careful nurturing
Yeah.
and resource allocation to reach their full potential.
So it's like looking into your crystal ball, trying to identify those seeds of future success.
Exactly. But how do you even begin to identify these tomorrow's breadwinners?
Right.
It takes careful analysis and a willingness to look beyond the obvious.
Okay.
And Drucker suggests we think about our business in terms of different categories,
Okay.
each representing a different stage in the life cycle of a product or a business.
Okay. I'm ready for a categorization lesson.
All right, so first you've got your today's breadwinners.
Okay.
These are your star performers.
Yeah.
High volume, high profitability.
Hey, cash cows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they may be on the decline.
Right.
And you need to be realistic about their long-term potential.
So don't get too comfortable with your current success.
Right. Always be on the lookout for what's next.
What's next?
Then you've got tomorrow's breadwinners.
Okay.
These are the ones with high potential, but they need investment.
Yeah.
And careful attention to grow.
Yeah.
These are the ones you want to nurture and protect.
Right. Give them the resources they need to really flourish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balancing act.
It is.
Milking your current cash cows while simultaneously investing in the future.
What other categories are there?
Well, you've got productive specialties.
Okay.
These have limited markets but high contributions.
Okay.
And low resource needs.
So they're like those niche products with a loyal following that consistently generate profit without demanding a ton of attention.
Low maintenance.
Yeah.
Then there are the repair jobs.
Okay.
These are the businesses or products with decent volume and potential.
Okay.
But they need fixing.
Okay.
Think of them like a fixer-upper house.
Yeah.
With some work, you can turn them into real assets.
I see. So it's about recognizing the potential in those underperforming areas and finding ways to revitalize them.
Absolutely. A lot of companies miss opportunities here.
I bet they do.
They just write off those struggling areas instead of trying to find the hidden value.
And then you've got your development products, right?
Yes. These are your brand new innovations.
Okay.
The ones that require heavy investment,
Yeah.
but have the potential to be game changers.
The moonshots.
Exactly. Those are the riskier bets, but with the potential for a big payoff down the line.
So it's like a diversified portfolio.
Yeah.
Some steady earners, some rising stars, and some wild cards.
It's about managing risk and reward.
Yeah.
Balancing short-term needs with long-term goals.
This is giving me a whole new framework for thinking about my business.
That's great to hear.
It's really helpful. But he doesn't stop there, does he?
He does not. He goes on to talk about other categories like failures.
Mm-hmm.
Where the losses outweigh the contribution.
Right.
And then yesterday's breadwinners. Okay. Those declining products that you might want to milk for as long as you can.
Okay.
Before phasing them out.
Sounds a little ruthless.
It can be, but sometimes you got to make tough choices.
Right. For the overall health of the business.
Yeah, exactly. He also mentions unjustified specialties.
Okay.
Products or services that are costly but don't offer much differentiation.
Okay.
They're often the result of inertia or internal politics.
Ah.
And they can drain resources without contributing much value.
Then there are the investments in managerial ego, right?
Oh, yeah. Those are the pet projects we all have a soft spot for.
Yeah, I'll have them.
But they might not be the best use of resources.
You're right.
And then finally, you've got the Cinderellas, those hidden gems with high potential that are often overlooked.
So it's like a business fairy tale, searching for those diamonds in the rough.
Exactly.
But how do we actually identify these different types of products and businesses?
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all these categories.
It is.
Drucker stresses the importance of comparing actual performance to expectations.
Oh, okay.
It's not enough to just look at the current numbers.
Yeah.
You need to ask, did this product or business meet our goals? Did it exceed them? Did it fall short? And why?
I see. So it's about setting clear expectations, tracking performance against those goals, and then digging deeper.
Yes.
To understand the story behind the number.
That's what separates the good managers from the great ones.
This is giving me a whole new appreciation for the complexity of business.
Yeah.
It's not just about selling a product or providing a service.
Right.
It's about understanding your costs, identifying your leadership position, nurturing your future stars.
Right.
And making tough decisions about where to allocate your precious resources.
It's all connected. It's a giant puzzle.
It is.
And Drucker's giving us the tools to put all the pieces together.
I'm starting to feel like I can see the big picture now.
That's great.
But just when you think you've mastered the puzzle, Drucker throws in another layer of complexity.
Of course he does.
He challenges us to look beyond our own internal operations and consider the entire economic activity that creates value for the customer.
The whole value chain.
This is where his ideas on cost analysis get really interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm ready for a cost analysis crash course.
All right, let's do it.
What does Drucker have to say about this often dreaded topic?
Well, he starts by saying that most cost-cutting efforts are totally misdirected.
Really?
Instead of targeting waste and non-productive costs.
Yeah.
Companies often go after what he calls the productive costs.
Okay.
The very costs that are contributing to their results.
That seems counterintuitive. Why would a company cut the costs that are actually helping them generate revenue?
Because it's often easier to focus on what's right in front of you than to take a step back and analyze the bigger picture.
Right, and we get caught up in the day-to-day.
Exactly. And Drucker breaks down costs into 3 categories.
Okay.
You've got your productive costs, your policing costs, and waste.
Okay. Let's unpack those categories.
Right.
What are productive costs exactly?
These are the costs that are directly tied to generating results.
Okay.
Like the cost of labor, materials, and equipment that you use in creating your product or service.
Got it.
Drucker argues that the best way to control these costs isn't to simply slash them,
Okay.
but to focus on maximizing opportunity
Okay.
and measuring the productivity of your key resources.
So your people, your time, your money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Working smarter, not harder.
Getting the most bang for your buck.
That's the idea.
Making sure every hour of labor, every dollar spent,
Right.
is contributing to real value creation.
That's what it's all about.
All right, so that's productive costs.
Right.
Now, what about policing costs?
So these are the costs associated with compliance, control, and administration.
Okay.
They're necessary,
Yeah.
but they don't directly add value to the product or service.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think about a company with a really complicated system for approving expense reports.
Okay, yeah.
Multiple layers of review, tons of
Right.
paperwork, administrative overhead.
Yeah,
All that takes time and money,
right.
but it doesn't directly contribute to creating a product or serving a customer.
Right, it's like the necessary red tape that comes with running a business.
Exactly. You can't avoid it entirely,
Right.
but you can try to minimize it.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, Drucker suggests that these costs can be minimized through smart design of systems and procedures.
Okay.
He gives this great example of a shipping company that used claims investigations
Okay.
as a way to identify and address operational failures
Interesting.
across their entire system.
Okay.
So by analyzing the patterns in customer complaints,
Yeah.
they could pinpoint areas where things were going wrong
Okay.
and then improve their processes to prevent future issues.
That's brilliant. They turned customer complaints into valuable data points
Exactly.
for improving efficiency and reducing costs.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable insights come from unexpected sources.
I love that. And that brings us to the final category,
Waste.
which is probably the most intriguing one.
It is.
Drucker describes it as the cost of efforts that cannot produce results.
Right.
And he says the most expensive type of waste is not doing. Not doing. What does that even mean?
It's a bit of a head scratcher, right?
It is. How can you have a cost associated with something you're not doing?
Well, it's about all the idle time,
Yeah.
the delays, the inefficiencies that are built into our systems.
Okay.
Think about machine downtime in a manufacturing plant.
Okay.
Everyone's standing around waiting for the repairman
Yeah.
or waiting for the next production run to start.
Right.
Or imagine empty cargo ships or partially filled airplanes. All that unused capacity represents waste.
Right. It's costing you money, but it's not generating any value.
Exactly.
So it's about recognizing all the hidden costs
yeah,
of inefficiency in our processes.
absolutely.
It's about looking for those areas where things are getting stuck,
Yeah.
where resources are being wasted,
Right.
where potential is being squandered.
It's about streamlining, optimizing, creating a more efficient flow of work.
This is all starting to tie back to that idea of effectiveness over efficiency.
It is.
It's not just about doing things right.
Yeah.
It's about doing the right things.
In the right way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's about aligning your efforts with your goals, eliminating waste, and maximizing the productivity of your resources.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been an eye-opening exploration of cost analysis. I feel like I'm seeing my business in a whole new light.
That's what Drucker does best.
He gives you a framework for understanding not just the what of business,
Right.
but the why.
Exactly. He helps you connect the dots, see the bigger picture, and make more informed decisions.
And he doesn't stop at internal analysis, does he?
He does not.
Mm.
He goes on to challenge us to focus on the most important element of all,
Which is
the customer.
the customer.
Yes. This is where I think things get really interesting.
It is.
We've talked about products and costs and resources, but ultimately it all comes down to the people we're serving, right?
Absolutely.
What insights does Drucker offer on the customer?
Well, he starts by kind of expressing some skepticism towards what businesses think they know about their customers.
Okay.
He emphasizes that the customer is the only one who truly understands their own needs and motivations.
Right.
And he points out that there's often this disconnect between what businesses think they sell
Yeah.
and what customers actually buy.
That makes so much sense. We often get so caught up in our own products and services
Absolutely.
that we forget to see things from the customer's perspective. We assume we know what they want.
But we haven't really taken the time to understand their needs, their desires, their pain points.
Their reality.
Can you give me an example of this disconnect?
Sure, Drucker uses the example of a bowling equipment manufacturer.
Okay.
He might think he's selling bowling balls and pins.
Yeah.
But what the customer's really buying is an activity.
Right. They're looking for an enjoyable way to spend their leisure time, a way to socialize, a way to compete, a way to just have fun.
Exactly.
So the bowling equipment manufacturer isn't just competing with other equipment makers.
Right.
He's competing with movie theaters and restaurants and video games and every other form of entertainment out there.
That's right.
If he doesn't understand that, he's missing a huge part of the competitive landscape.
Absolutely. He's not just selling a product, he's selling an experience, a feeling, a solution to a need that goes beyond the physical object itself.
That's such a mind-blowing shift in perspective.
It is.
It's not enough to understand your product. You need to understand the context in which the customer is using it. The need, it's fulfilling the problem it's solving.
It's about seeing the world through their eyes, not just through the lens of your own product catalog.
And Drucker introduces this really interesting concept he calls the customer's aggregate.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So the aggregate is the group of products or services that they perceive as belonging together.
Okay.
So he uses this example of Sears Roebuck,
Okay.
which successfully introduced auto insurance.
Okay.
Because customers saw it as a natural extension of their car purchase.
Okay.
It fit within their car aggregate.
Okay, yeah.
But when Sears tried to sell life insurance,
Yeah.
it met with a lot of resistance
Why is that?
because it belonged to a different aggregate in the customer's mind, finance, rather than merchandise.
So it's not just about selling a product.
Right.
It's about understanding those mental categories and associations that the customer has
Absolutely.
and how your product fits into their world.
You got it.
It's about aligning your offerings with their existing mental models.
Making it easy for them to see how your product fits into their lives.
And this leads to this really fascinating point about customer rationality.
Okay.
Drucker says we need to kind of challenge our assumptions about how customers make decisions.
Yeah.
He points out that customers aren't always driven by pure logic,
Right.
and sometimes their seemingly irrational behavior actually makes perfect sense when you understand their underlying needs and perceptions.
Their reality.
Can you give me an example of this irrational customer behavior?
Sure. He talks about retailers insisting on their own private label brands,
Okay.
even though they often cost more to manage than national brands.
Why would they do that?
It seems counterintuitive from a purely economic standpoint, right?
It does seem a little strange.
But Drucker argues it's all about the customer's perception of choice and value.
Okay.
Even if the private label brand is essentially the same as the national brand,
Yeah.
the fact that the retailer is offering it as their own curated selection gives it a certain allure.
I see. It creates that sense of differentiation.
Exactly, and it appeals to that desire for a unique shopping experience.
So what seems irrational from a business perspective is actually a smart marketing tactic
Yeah.
that caters to these subtle psychological needs.
Right.
It's about understanding the emotional drivers behind customer behavior, not just the rational ones.
Absolutely. And Drucker encourages us to embrace those seemingly irrational behaviors and try to understand the motivations behind them.
Okay.
He even suggests asking ourselves this very provocative question. What in the customer's behavior appears totally irrational? And what, therefore, is it in his reality that I fail to see?
That is such a powerful question.
It is.
It really forces us to step outside our own assumptions and try to see the world through the customer's eyes.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Instead of judging their choices, we should use them as clues to uncover these deeper insights into their needs and desires.
That's the key.
I love that. And this leads to another really important concept, identifying your non-competitors. These are businesses in seemingly unrelated industries that are actually competing for the same customer needs or resources.
Okay, how can you have a competitor that's not even in your industry?
Well, Drucker mentions this power company that preferred to design its own equipment instead of buying it from manufacturers. So this actually created an opportunity for manufacturers to offer a new service, design consultation.
Oh, interesting.
So by becoming partners in the design process, they could influence the power company's choices and still get a piece of the pie.
That's brilliant.
Right.
They turned a potential threat into an opportunity.
Exactly.
By understanding the power company's needs and adapting their offerings accordingly.
That's the entrepreneurial mindset.
It's a reminder that competition can come from unexpected places.
It can.
And that sometimes collaboration can be more effective than confrontation.
I think that's a really important point.
It is, and Drucker encourages us to be on the lookout for these non-competitors.
Yeah, these unexpected rivals that might be encroaching on our territory
Right.
from these seemingly unrelated fields.
You never know where your next competitor is going to come from.
This is really making me think about my own business in a whole new way.
That's great.
It's not just about what I'm selling.
Right.
It's about the entire experience I'm creating for my customers.
A whole package.
Yeah, the needs of fulfilling the problems I'm solving.
Yeah.
Understanding their motivations, their perceptions, even their irrational behaviors, and the competition I'm facing from these unexpected sources.
It's a lot to think about.
This is a lot to process, but this is just the foundation for what Drucker believes is the most important aspect of business success.
That's right. He dedicates a whole chapter to this idea. Knowledge is the business.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into the knowledge pool.
That's good.
What's Drucker's central thesis here?
So he argues that the true asset of any business is its knowledge, the specific capabilities of its people that allow it to create value for customers.
So it's not just about having a great product or a clever marketing campaign.
Right.
It's about the brains behind the operation.
Exactly. It's the unique expertise that sets you apart from the competition.
So it's not just about what you have, it's about what you know.
You got it.
And he stresses the importance of identifying your distinct knowledge.
Yes, the specialized skills and insights that give you a competitive advantage.
So it's about knowing what you're really good at. What makes you stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, the things that customers are willing to pay a premium for.
But how do you actually identify your distinct knowledge?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It seems like a pretty intangible concept.
It can be, but Drucker suggests asking yourself some key questions.
Okay,
What do we do really well? What are we known for? What do our customers value most about us?
I see. So it's about taking an honest inventory of your strengths.
Yes, both individually and as an organization.
Being clear about what you excel at.
And what makes you unique.
But
But identifying your distinct knowledge is just the first step.
okay.
Drucker goes on to outline 4 characteristics of knowledge that are essential for success.
Okay, layman on me.
All right, first it must be specialized and distinct, not just general information.
So you can't just be good at something.
Right.
You need to be exceptional.
You need to be the go-to person, the recognized authority in your field.
The expert.
Exactly.
Okay, so specialized and distinct.
Second, your distinct knowledge requires practice and continuous improvement.
You can't just rest on your laurels. You need to constantly be honing your skills, staying up to date, pushing the boundaries of your knowledge.
Lifelong learning.
It's not just about what you know now, it's about your commitment to growth.
Right.
Staying curious, staying hungry, always striving to be better.
You got it.
Okay, so practice and continuous improvement. What's number 3?
Your knowledge needs to be regularly reviewed and updated.
To stay relevant.
Exactly. The world is changing faster than ever.
It is.
And what was cutting edge yesterday might be obsolete tomorrow.
That's scary.
It is so you need to constantly be adapting, refining, and evolving your knowledge to stay ahead of the curve.
So be agile, be flexible, and be willing to embrace change.
Absolutely.
Okay, so review and update. What's the 4th characteristic?
So your knowledge must be concentrated in areas where you can truly excel.
Yeah.
Don't try to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
Focus your energy and resources on those areas where you have the potential to be a leader, where you can make a real impact.
So play to your strengths.
Yes.
Double down on your core competencies.
Become the dominant force in your chosen domain.
I like it.
And Drucker gives this great example of a Japanese chemical company whose president regularly reviews knowledge, effectiveness, and knowledge needs with his team.
Okay.
They analyze their performance, they identify areas for improvement, and they're constantly challenging themselves to stay ahead of the competition.
So it's like a gardener tending to their plants, making sure they have the right nutrients and sunlight and water to thrive.
A perfect analogy.
And Drucker introduces this fascinating concept he calls reclassifying knowledge.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So it's about looking at your existing capabilities in a new light and finding unexpected applications for your expertise.
Okay, so finding those hidden connections.
Yeah.
And leveraging your existing strengths in new and innovative ways.
He tells the story of this chemical company that was struggling to stay afloat
Okay.
in the shrinking American textile market.
Okay.
They were experts in producing dye-stuff intermediates, the chemicals used to make dyes for cotton fabrics.
Okay.
But as synthetic fibers became more popular,
Yeah.
their market was disappearing.
So their specialized knowledge was becoming less valuable.
Right, the world was changing,
Yeah.
and they were at risk of being left behind.
Tough spot.
But instead of giving up, they decided to reclassify their knowledge.
Okay, how'd they do that?
They realized that while the American market was shrinking, the market for cotton dyes in developing countries was booming.
Oh, interesting.
So they went global, setting up operations in 11 countries across Latin America, Asia, and Africa.
That's brilliant. They took their existing expertise and found a whole new market for it.
And they didn't stop there.
What else did they do?
They also realized that their knowledge of dye-stuff manufacturing could be applied to designing and manufacturing chemical engineering equipment.
Wow.
They were already experts in the processes and technology.
Yeah.
So they leveraged that knowledge to become suppliers of the very equipment used to produce dyes.
That's a remarkable example of how reclassifying knowledge can lead to unexpected growth and innovation.
It is.
It's about seeing your skills and expertise through a new lens,
Right.
and finding creative ways to apply them to different markets or challenges.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about identifying opportunities,
Yeah.
exploiting discontinuities, building on our strength,
Right.
and even turning weaknesses into advantages.
That's right.
What's next?
Well, this is where Drucker shifts our focus from analyzing the present to actively shaping the future. He challenges us to become proactive, to anticipate change, and to create the future we want to see.
Now we're talking. I'm ready to unleash my inner visionary.
Let's do it.
What wisdom does Drucker offer on creating the future?
Well, he starts by outlining two approaches to opportunity.
Okay.
The first is exploiting the time lag between the emergence of a discontinuity
Okay.
and its full impact.
So it's about anticipating a future that has already happened.
Exactly. Seeing the writing on the wall before everyone else does.
Recognizing those subtle shifts and emerging trends that are going to reshape the landscape, and positioning yourself to capitalize on those changes.
That's the key understanding, that the future is not something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we can create.
We have agency.
And it all starts with recognizing those discontinuities.
Okay.
Those moments when the old rules no longer apply and new possibilities emerge.
Can you give me an example of a discontinuity and how a business might exploit that time lag?
Sure, think about the changing demographics of the American population in the 1960s.
Okay, the baby boomers.
Exactly.
Right.
That's right. The baby boom generation was entering adulthood.
Right.
And that meant this huge surge in young families
Yeah.
with different needs and desires and spending habits.
Totally.
Businesses that recognize this shift early on could adapt their products, their services, their marketing messages to cater to this new generation of consumers.
So it's about paying attention to those demographic trends, understanding how they're going to impact the market, and then adapting your strategies accordingly.
It's about anticipating the future by understanding the forces that are shaping it.
Now, the second approach to opportunity, you said, is even more proactive.
This is about imposing a new idea on the future to give it direction and shape.
Making the future happen, not just waiting for it to unfold.
That's right.
Can you give me an example of a business that successfully imposed a new idea on the future?
Absolutely. Drucker uses the example of Werner von Siemens and Thomas Edison,
Okay.
both of whom created entirely new industries.
Wow.
By first envisioning the opportunities and then developing the technologies to make it happen.
Okay.
Siemens saw the potential for electric railways and developed the generator to make it happen.
Yes.
Edison envisioned a world lit by electricity and invented the light bulb to bring his vision to life.
So they didn't just invent things, they created entire ecosystems.
Yes.
Entire industries built around their innovative ideas.
That's the power of imposing a new idea on the future.
So inspiring, but it also seems like a pretty rare feat.
It is.
How do you even go about finding these future-shaping ideas?
It's a challenge for sure, but Drucker emphasizes the importance of understanding this concept of discontinuity and its impact on businesses.
Discontinuities.
These are those fundamental shifts that disrupt the status quo and create new possibilities.
Okay.
They could be technological breakthroughs,
Yeah.
social or cultural changes, political upheavals, economic transformations.
So it's about paying attention to those seismic shifts that are reshaping the world around us. Recognizing those moments when the old rules no longer apply and new possibilities emerge.
And the key is to ask yourself, what opportunities does this discontinuity create? How can we leverage this change to create new value, solve new problems, or serve new needs?
It's about seeing disruption not as a threat, but as a springboard for innovation.
That's right. Recognizing that change creates opportunity, and those who are willing to embrace change are the ones who will thrive in the long run.
And Drucker also highlights the importance of identifying the right time span for planning and action.
Yes, different businesses operate on different time horizons,
Yeah.
and aligning your efforts with the appropriate time span is crucial for success.
So you have to know what game you're playing.
Absolutely. He uses the contrasting examples of Curtiss Wright and the Martin Company in the aircraft industry to demonstrate how different time horizons can lead to vastly different outcomes.
Can you walk me through those examples?
Sure. So in the late 1940s, Curtiss Wright was a powerhouse in the aircraft engine industry.
Okay.
They had a strong track record,
Yep.
solid financial position,
Oh,
a backlog of orders.
they were killing it.
They were focused on short-term gains
Okay.
and incremental improvements,
Yeah.
and they neglected the longer-term technological shifts.
That were about to reshape the industry.
Exactly.
So they missed the boat.
They did. Martin Company, on the other hand, was struggling.
Okay.
They were in debt. They lacked a standout product.
Yeah.
They seemed destined to fade away.
The underdog.
But their new management team had a different perspective.
Okay.
They recognized that the future of the industry lay in developing complex systems
Yeah.
that would require long-term research and development.
So they were playing the long game.
They embraced a time horizon of 8 to 10 years,
Wow.
investing in the knowledge and capabilities that would position them as leaders in this emerging field.
So Curtiss Wright, despite their initial strength, got caught flat-footed by clinging to the past.
Yeah.
While the Martin Company, despite their initial weaknesses, positioned themselves for future success by embracing a longer-term vision.
That's right. It's a great example of how a subtle difference in perspective can lead to dramatically different outcomes.
That's the power of aligning your time horizon with the nature of the opportunities you're pursuing.
Absolutely.
It's not just about chasing the latest fads or trends.
Right.
It's about understanding the underlying forces that are shaping your industry
Uh-huh.
and making strategic choices based on a realistic assessment of the time it will take to develop the necessary knowledge and capabilities.
It's about having the patience and the discipline to play the long game.
Yeah, to invest in the future, even when it means sacrificing short-term gains.
That's right.
It's about having the courage to bet on your vision even when others are doubting you.
Drucker also emphasizes that sometimes identifying the right time span for your business means going against conventional wisdom.
Okay, I like that. Can you give me some examples?
Yeah, he gives the example of Sears Roebuck, which focused on long-term growth by bringing mass merchandise to rural America at a time when most retailers were obsessed with urban markets. And then there's Marks & Spencer, which consistently identified new opportunities by asking this provocative question: what are the opportunities where doing something new and different is likely to have the greatest economic results?
So it's about being willing to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
To think differently, to zig when everyone else is zagging.
To go against the grain.
To have the confidence to trust your own instincts and to pursue those opportunities that others might overlook.
That's the entrepreneurial spirit.
So we've talked about identifying opportunities, exploiting discontinuities, building on our strengths, but what about those areas where we're not so strong? What does Drucker say about addressing our weaknesses?
Well, he actually encourages us to systematically analyze our vulnerabilities and see if we can turn them into strengths.
Yeah.
He gives the example of American railroads who initially resisted the rise of automobiles, trucks, and airplanes.
They probably saw those new modes of transportation as a threat, right?
Exactly. But eventually, they realized the opportunity to focus on their core strength, long-distance bulk transportation. They adapted to the changing landscape and found a way to thrive in a new era.
It's a reminder that we shouldn't be afraid of change. Sometimes what we perceive as a threat can actually be an opportunity for growth and innovation if we're willing to shift our perspective. Do you have any other examples of companies turning weaknesses into strengths?
Drucker tells the story of a soft drink bottler who initially opposed diet drinks. They thought it would cannibalize their sales of sugary beverages.
I can see why they would think that. It seems counterintuitive to embrace a product that might take away from your existing sales.
But they eventually came around and embraced the trend. They realized that diet drinks weren't going away, and that by offering both regular and diet options, they could actually expand their market share.
And probably appeal to a whole new segment of health-conscious consumers. It's a great example of how a perceived threat can actually become a catalyst for growth and diversification.
And Drucker encourages us to look for those hidden opportunities by asking a powerful question. What is the opportunity in this threat? How can we turn this challenge to our advantage?
I love that. It's about shifting our mindset from fear to curiosity, from resistance to exploration. It's about seeing challenges not as roadblocks, but as potential doorways to new possibilities.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the final chapter of the book, where Drucker focuses on translating those strategic decisions into concrete action and building a culture of economic performance. He talks about aligning all aspects of the business: operations, marketing, knowledge efforts, people, and financial resources, all with the chosen strategy.
So it's about creating a cohesive, integrated system where every part works in harmony with the whole, where everyone is rowing in the same direction.
Exactly. He stresses the importance of designing your organizational structure and processes to support your strategic direction. He gives the example of a mechanical company that tried to enter the organic chemistry field, but failed because they tried to apply the same organizational structure and management practices as their existing mechanical business.
So one size doesn't fit all. You need to tailor your structure and processes to the specific needs of each business or product line. It's about being flexible and adaptable.
Absolutely. Drucker also highlights aligning your financial resources with your business strategy. Financial decisions should be seen as tools to support your overall direction, not as ends in themselves. He provides a great example. Litton Industries, which grew rapidly through acquisitions but always focused on buying specific assets and capabilities, time, market access, product lines, research teams, rather than simply acquiring companies for the sake of growth.
So it's about being strategic with your acquisitions, making sure they contribute to your overall goals and enhance your core competencies.
Exactly. And he stresses the importance of having a clear plan for knowledge efforts, especially research and development. These efforts should be directly linked to your business objectives and measured in terms of their contribution to results. He talks about the changing nature of work and the rise of the knowledge worker individuals who contribute knowledge rather than just physical labor. And he emphasizes that these knowledge workers need to understand the business goals and how their work contributes to overall success to be truly effective.
So it's about empowering your people, giving them the context and the purpose behind their work, and making them feel like valued contributors to the larger mission. It's about creating a culture where everyone understands how their individual efforts contribute to the collective success of the organization.
Precisely. And this leads to his final point: the importance of creating a culture that values economic performance and rewards those who contribute to it. He says this starts with promoting people who demonstrate the ability to make sound economic decisions.
So it's about recognizing and rewarding those who have the skills and the mindset to drive economic success, to make those tough choices that lead to profitable growth. It's about creating a culture of accountability where people are rewarded for making smart decisions that benefit the entire organization.
Exactly. And Drucker leaves us with a powerful message. Economic results are ultimately a human achievement, driven by the decisions and actions of individuals within the organization.
So it's not just about systems and processes. It's about people. It's about leadership. It's about creating a culture of excellence and accountability where everyone is aligned around a shared vision for success.
Beautifully said.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive into Peter Drucker's Managing for Results. Even though it's written over 50 years ago, his insights are still so relevant today. We've explored so many powerful concepts, from result areas and opportunity focus to the importance of knowledge and customer understanding. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is this emphasis on human agency, the idea that economic success is ultimately a human endeavor driven by the choices we make and the actions we take.
I completely agree. Drucker reminds us that businesses don't exist in a vacuum. They're made up of people, and it's the passion, the creativity, and the commitment of those people that ultimately determines success or failure.
Absolutely. So, as we go forward, let's remember to challenge our assumptions, to embrace change, to focus on opportunities to build on our strengths, and to empower our people. And let's never forget that we have the power to shape the future, to create the businesses and the world we want to live in.
I love that. And since we talk about shaping the future, let me leave you with a final provocative thought from Drucker himself. Remember, he wrote this preface in 1985, reflecting on a book he'd originally published in 1964. So here's the question he poses. What business realities are being ignored today that will seem obvious in 20 years? What are the emerging discontinuities that will reshape our world? What knowledge and capabilities will be essential for success in the future?
Wow, what a powerful question to ponder. I think we all need to take some time to reflect on that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Fellow knowledge seekers, we'll see you next time for another exploration of the ideas that shape our world.